This paper is like a half sheet. We are gluing it in on page 72 in our notebook. My colors today are green and black. This is Geometry 2. This is our volume notes. So we will start by writing that in. These are our volume notes. Geometry 2 is the standard. Whether this is taped or glued in your notes. So in order to find the volume of any sort of shape, you can use the formula that volume equals the area of the base times the height. You can use this formula, area of the base times the height, or instead of area of the base, a lot of times we call it length times width. When you take length times width, you get the area of the base. Once you get that, then you can take it times the height. So there's another way to look at that. So a lot of people just remember you got to multiply all three numbers together as well for volume. Volume, you're filling a container up. So how would I get the area of this base? Well, I like to trace the base over here. I've got 6 by 6. If I kind of look at this, how would I get the area of this base? I would take, that's kind of like saying here's my length and here's my width. Width is 6, length is 6. So we take length times width. That's how you get the area of the base. So 6 times 6, our capital B, our area of our base would be 36 feet squared for area. And then we got to take it times the height. Height, I think about when I go up, standing tall, what's your height? And this is 10 foot. So you've got 36 feet for the area of the base. Our height is 10 foot. So since we're taking a squared number times just a number, that's when we multiply our 36 times 10. That's where we get our volume of 360. And then we call it feet cubed because we had, this was squared and this was one more. That's where we get the third dimension. 2 here plus a third one. So 360 feet cubed is the volume of this rectangular prism. Length times width times height. That's how you get the area of the base. So if I look at this, how do I get the area of the base? Well, if I trace the base, it's like what it's sitting on, what would my length and width be to get the area of this base? I would have 10 and 8 for my length and for my width. And so 10 times 8, 10 times 8, the area of the base, that's why it's a capital B, is 80, and this is centimeters squared for the area of the base, timesing it by the height going up, and as I go up, I see 4 centimeters. So 4 centimeters, 80 times 4 centimeters, let's see, 8 times 4 is 32 with a 0. Centimeters cubed, we always label volume cubed, thinking about how many cubes would fit in that shape there. So those were both rectangular prisms. Moving on. We have a triangular prism and another triangular prism. One's kind of laid on its side and one's sitting on its base. Remember, we label them by their bases. Neither one of them are pyramids because they don't reach a point. So if I'm looking at the base, some people want to trace it down here, but it's hard to see these dimensions because they don't label them here. So where else do you see this base? Up here. So it's dimensions 2 and 3. Remember, this is a triangle base, so we're not just going to take 2 times 3 and get 6 because that would give us an entire rectangle. We want a triangle. So what do we know about a triangle? Let's write it down here. Area of a triangle equals 1/2 times base times height. Or some people call it base times height and then divide by 2. So if we do base times height, remember our base and height make a right angle, which is what the 2 and the 3 do right here. So this is like our base and our height. We could label this B and height. In order to get the area of that base, we're going to take 2 times 3, but then we need to divide it by 2. So instead of having 6, 2 times 3 is 6, divided by 2, we're going to get 3. And this is yards. And that's squared. So what we found is the area of the base, the capital B is area of the base, 3 yards squared for the area of the base. What is the height? Base, area of the base times the height, 9. And that's just yards. It is not squared, it is just one dimension. And this was 2 dimensions. 3 times 9 is how I get the grand total of 27 yards squared. Or I'm sorry, cubed, not squared, cubed for the volume. So on that one, it was important since it was a triangle base. You can't just take base times height. To get the area of the base, you got to do base times height and then divide by 2. This is also a triangle base. So instead of 8 and 6, which are my base and height, they make a right angle here. So instead of 8 times 6, I got to do 8 times 6 and divide it by 2 because I have a triangle base. So again, area of a triangle base would be base times height divide by 2, and our numbers, if I filled those in, are 8 times 6 divide by 2. 8 times 6 is 48, divide by 2 is 24, or some people like to do 8 and divide by 2 immediately and get 4. 4 times 6 would give us 24 again, another way to look at it. So the area of the base is 24 inches squared, area is always squared, times the height that's kind of laid on its side, so the height looks different. So there's our base and height, and then this is our other dimension, 15 inches. Area of the base times the height, 24 times 15. On my calculator, I get 360 inches cubed. This is volume. Thinking how many cubes would fit into that shape there. So length times width times height is one way to think about it, or finding the area of the base and then timesing it by the height. Sometimes the area of the base is a triangle shape, so we have to use the triangle formula to find the area versus just taking length times width. Your homework for this particular volume, it's a volume worksheet. The worksheet is page 129 on one side and 130 on the other. You need to do all. Make sure that you are labeling them correctly. You may use a calculator to help with the math, but you also need to show your work. Calculator and show work. Just like I was showing work here to get the area of the base. So that will help with volume if you do that page in the packet.